It's The Real News. I'm Aaron Mate. The Trump administration has confirmed the Iran nuclear deal is working, but despite that, it might be trying to tear it up. In a letter to Congress, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson confirmed Tehran is in compliance, but Tillerson then said the nuclear deal is now under review and added this.
The Trump administration has no intention of passing the buck to a future administration on Iran. The evidence is clear. Iran's provocative actions threaten the United States, the region, and the world.
At the same time, Defense Secretary James Mattis was in Saudi Arabia, where he vowed U.S. support for what he called, quote, resistance to Iran's mischief.
Now that we have the blessing of our leadership, that it's important that we actually do something with it. We actually do something as we reinforce Saudi Arabia's resistance to Iran's mischief and make you more effective with your military as we work together as partners.
So why is the Trump administration increasing anti-Iran rhetoric, and why are they threatening a nuclear deal they acknowledge Iran upholds? And how is all of this viewed in Tehran just weeks before a new presidential election? Well, joining us is Seyed Hossein Mousavian, a former senior Iranian diplomat who served in several top posts. He is now a Middle East and nuclear policy specialist at Princeton University. Dr. Mousavian, welcome.
Morning.
Good morning. So I want to start by playing you the comments of Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. He served as the chief of staff to Secretary of State Colin Powell during the Bush administration and during the pivotal time when they made their phony case for going to war. And I spoke to him yesterday about the rhetoric we're hearing right now from the Trump administration about Iran, and this is what he said.
I think we're seeing the same sheet of music unfold again, different target this time, Iran instead of Iraq. But we're seeing the same people, in many respects, neoconservatives, most of them, influence this administration and take advantage of some of the things that this administration offers them, such as its rank amateurism, and try to use that to get what they want, what they've always wanted, which is regime change in Tehran.
So that's Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, who served under President George W. Bush and took part in the effort to build the case for invading Iraq. Now telling us that he's seeing the same people push for the same thing, regime change, but this time in Iran. Dr. Mousavian, how do you respond to that?
I think regime change has been the U.S. policy since Revolution 1979. Is not something new. Every U.S. administration, whether Democrat or Republicans, they have tried their best with the most coercive strategies, pressures, sanctions, even supporting military invasion of Iran by Saddam, even the use of chemical weapons by Saddam. They have done whatever they could to bring a regime change in Iran, and it's clear the U.S. has failed, and Iran today is one of the most powerful, stable countries in the region, if not the most. Therefore, I don't see major difference between Trump policy with Bush or Clinton or Reagan. However, I don't believe a Trump administration would go to war with Iran. You are right to say some people in charge today, they are the same people who attacked Iraq in 2003 or Afghanistan. Nevertheless, I believe they have learned a lot from attacking Iraq and Afghanistan. The U.S. has failed in Afghanistan. The U.S. failed in Iraq. The U.S. lost trillions of dollars. The U.S. lost thousands of civilians or military personnel in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And the U.S. has left these two countries and the region in a completely unsecure, unstable situation. And it is what Trump himself said. And many Americans, they have said the war in Afghanistan and in Iraq by the U.S. Is the root causes of expansion of terrorism and violence in the region. They know they have failed. They are not going to repeat. And they also understand if they have already failed in Afghanistan and Iraq, if they are going to attack Iran, the consequences would be tenfold. Iran is a great country, big country, 80 million population with huge influence in the region and beyond. And I don't believe they are going to go to war with Iran.
Okay, I take your point about the continuity of U.S. policy towards Iran, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. But what about what we're seeing now? I mean, you have the sanctions being reviewed, the nuclear deal under threat, and the U.S. appearing to ramp up support for the Saudi campaign in Yemen.
The reason I believe Trump is increasing the pressures and sanctions and accusations of Iran is because there was a very short period of engagement between Iran and the U.S. I mean, what I said about the U.S. policy from 1979 for regime change, sanctions, pressures, covert war, overt war, economic war, it really was the U.S. policy for decades. However, President Obama, in his second term, not the first term, from 2013 to 2016, had a piecemeal engagement with Iran on the nuclear, one issue. And diplomacy succeeded. The nuclear deal was resolved, agreed. The nuclear crisis was resolved. And this negotiation between the world powers and Iran ended to creation a document, the nuclear deal, which is the most comprehensive agreement during the history of non-proliferation, preventing diversion of peaceful nuclear program toward weaponization with the most and the highest level of intrusive inspection and transparency. At the same time, this short period of engagement created a lot of other positive results, like the exchange of prisoners between Iran and the US. Iran attended international peace talks on Syria. Iran accepted the principles the US and the other regional world powers agreed in October 2015 on Syria. There was 16 American sailors illegally, they entered Iranian water territory in less than 24 hours. Because of this short engagement, Iran agreed to release them without punishment. There was also a peaceful settlement on financial disputes. After 38 years, they agreed for a part of financial disputes. There were a lot of outcomes in just these 3 years. Israel and Saudi Arabia, they were extremely angry with the development because Israelis and Saudis, they wanted Obama to attack Iranian nuclear program. They wanted Obama to attack Syria. They wanted, again, to bring the US to different wars in the region. Obama was not for war. Obama was for diplomacy. That's why he could manage the nuclear. And after all this direct negotiation with Iran, the US came to understand at the end, there is a need for balance. And that's why President Obama said Saudi Arabia and Iran, they should share the region. However, again, Saudi Arabia, Israelis, they were extremely angry. When Trump came to power, he is going now to satisfy Israel and Saudi Arabia. All what they are doing is going to satisfy their Arab allies and the Israelis, and they are going to promise that we are not going to continue engagement policy with Iran.
So my question for you then is, how does Iran respond?
Iranians on the nuclear deal, they would be committed as long as the US has not violated. There is a joint committee between Iran and the world powers. Everyone who complains about violation by the other side has to bring documents and reasons in this joint committee, and this joint committee should decide. Now, while we are talking together, we have the joint committee in Vienna. They are discussing. Iranians also, they have brought a lot of reasons why the US has violated the JCPOA. However, Iran would continue. Iran has been committed to nuclear deal, despite the US has created a lot of problems for the deal, but they would continue. If the deal is violated, therefore Iran would not be committed to the deal. If the deal is violated by United States, the other members also they would not be committed. The UN resolution would be cancelled. Therefore, Iranians they would follow their normal nuclear program as usual. They would have no restrictions if for example they have accepted to have no reprocessing for 25 years. They would start to have reprocessing. If they have accepted to have enrichment below 5%, by non-proliferation treaty, you can enrich to 100%. There is no restriction. As a goodwill, Iran has accepted to enrich below 5% for 10, 15 years. Therefore, Iran would not be committed with such a restrictions. Iran would have peaceful nuclear program, no doubt about it, with no restriction.
And then, so given that this is an administration that has said some bellicose things about Iran, if Iran were to resume its nuclear activities, what do you think that means about the possibility for actual armed confrontation?
I think internationally, IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, is responsible to monitor and to report about the nuclear program of the member states. As long as Iran would continue to have peaceful nuclear program, the IAEA would monitor, would visit, would inspect, and they would report this is peaceful. As long as this is peaceful, the US cannot attack Iran. Any military strike would be completely internationally illegitimate, and there would be no international support for such a move. Therefore, the deal is about the measures on transparency and inspections and non-diversion toward weaponization and limits on Iranian nuclear program as a confidence-building measures. Some measures which no other member state of NPT, non-proliferation treaty, has ever accepted. Iran is the only country as a goodwill has accepted, as a confidence building has accepted such a huge limits and transparency measures. If the deal is canceled, Iran would go back to non-proliferation treaty like every other member state of NPT. They would have their nuclear program. We have Japan, they are enriching. We have we have Brazil, they are enriching. We have many member states of non-proliferation treaty, NPT, they have reprocessing. Iran would have the same. If there is no trust, the criteria is not the US judgment. The criteria is IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, affiliated to United Nations, not to the US.
And that wraps part one of this discussion. Seyed Hossein Mousavian is a former senior Iranian diplomat who served in several top posts, now a Middle East and nuclear policy specialist at Princeton University. Dr. Mousavian, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And stay tuned for part two of this discussion. I'm Aaron Mate for The Real News.